Hello everyone, welcome to the third film screening and discussion of the online Dalit Film Festival Nottingham. I am Neeraj Bunkar, host of this festival. I am a third year PhD scholar at the School of Arts and Humanities, Nottingham Trent University. My research focuses on Dalit subjectivity and its representation in Rajasthan-based Hindi cinema. I'm particularly I'm particularly looking at the exploration of the caste dynamics, Dalit narratives, Rajasthani folklore, oral history, and cinema. So today we are screening B.R. Ambedkar Now and Then. It's a 111-minute documentary film directed by Jyoti Nisha. It explores the question of the human condition. The film aspires to translate the praxis of Ambedkarite politics to image making and representation of marginalized subjects, culture, history, politics in popular cinema and media. Driven by Dr. Ambedkar's philosophy, epistemologically, the film symbolically and politically documents the representation and assertion of Bahujan people in the contemporary era. Questioning the institution of caste in India, this film is a commentary on religion, revolution, politics, and the freedom of speech. So now let's begin the screening of B.R. Ambedkar Now and Then. So enjoy the film and feel free to share your comment and questions in the comment section. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the film. And for me, it's like I'm totally overwhelmed by this multifaceted visual representation of the Bahujan world, what Jyoti calls. And like the before we discuss the film in more detail, I would like to first introduce our remarkable filmmaker, Jyoti Nisha, along with our two co-hosts, Dr. Nicole Thiara and Mrigakshi Das.
Thank you.
Jyoti Nisha is a multidisciplinary professional, an academic writer, screenwriter, filmmaker, and a producer with a focus on cinema, gaze, caste, gender, and mass media. Produced by Dharmatic Entertainment and streaming on Netflix. She also worked as a director's assistant to Neeraj Ghaywan on his short Geeli Pucchi, part of Ajeeb Daastaans anthology, which received rave reviews. She studied journalism from IIMC Delhi, screenwriting from FTIl Pune, and media and cultural studies from TIS Mumbai. She wrote for many national and international publications and worked as a full-time producing faculty with a film school for a year and a half. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Now and Then here is her debut feature-length documentary film, which she has directed, produced, crowdfunded, co-produced with Ranjith's Neelam Productions. Dr. Nicole Thiara is a co-lead of Nottingham Trent University's Post-Colonial and Global Studies Research Group and a principal investigator on the AHRC funded research network series Writing, Analyzing, Translating Dalit Literature. And its follow on grant, on page, and on stage celebrating Dalit and Adivasi literature and performing arts. She teaches post-colonial and contemporary literature at Nottingham Trent University, UK. Her area of research is Dalit and South Asian literature, and her current research project is the representation of modernity in Dalit literature. And our second co-host, Mrigakshi Das, is from Orissa, India, and is a doctoral candidate at the School of Arts and Humanities, Nottingham Trent University. She holds both a master's and bachelor's degree in English from the University of Delhi. Her current research focuses on Adivasi literature, and thesis is titled Adivasi Literature and Cinema, Exploring Adivasi Alterity and Assertion. Her areas of interest include Dalit literature, Adivasi literature, and decolonial and post-colonial study. So before I ask you anything, Jyoti, I want to commend you for your detailed academic exploration of the Dalit social, cultural, and political milieu in your film. As someone from the that same background, watching it was a very painful experience, but it is also a very crucial and impactful. And for that, thank you for bringing this subject and also that to the fore with an insider perspective, with an insider gaze. So and
Thank you so
exposing.
much for inviting me to show the film. I think it's really important for filmmakers to also get the platforms where they can show their work and their work can be discussed and appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. And also, that it's not only about, that bringing that perspective to the fore, but also that exposing that cruelty faced by Dalits at the hands of Swarna people. And also, so in this context, basically, I would like to know more about your experience during the entire process of shooting with the that survivors of caste violence, and how you integrated their stories into the broader academic narrative of your film. So it would be great if you could discuss your journey while shooting the film, and also how you finalize the thematic focus of your film.
Uh, I mean, making the film basically, it was a very personal choice to make this film because I was not very convinced, or like I did not relate with the characters of the marginalized people in popular culture. For me, like it was like a very personal, very honest experience that I don't relate with these kind of characters. And even if they, like people are marginalized, or they're poor, or they don't know about, what really structurally um, oppresses them. It still feels like, and when when you come from when you start understanding this very personal experience in a larger context of the structure of the society, then it feels like, oh, then you can look up because you are at the bottom of this structure of caste hierarchy, basically the pyramid structure. So personally, I think just for me, like that gaze, not very personally, I felt like, oh, you don't know us, basically. And that's where there is so much of distortion and appropriation. And at the same time, it was also very logical for me because the film industry is in Bombay. There is clearly research and cultural studies and social sciences studied in various institutions across the country. So naturally, why it just like made sense that why nobody was really making that effort. I mean, especially in Bombay, like it's happening in regional cinema. It's happening. It's something which Ranjith is doing, or Nagraj is doing, or Neeraj is doing. There are other people who are also doing that, but it's not part of what you call as Bollywood per se. But at the same time, like because I'm a North Indian, and I was not for the longest time exposed to cinema which was assertive or which was talking back. So just it was just that, like that I don't relate with this cinema, and it really does not contextualizes my background and history and Ambedkarite upbringing, and what is our culture. It's clearly exclusion, right? Like, so it really felt like they're not very deeply engaged with this question. And for that, I don't think so really um, you really do not need necessarily to understand research as well. I think it's just a very honest way of going about knowing that you don't know, and you've decided to tell stories of some people, and it's a very outsider's gaze which has been really celebrated, and like it kind of like has become like an epistemology. It's kind of like become like a pedagogy because you're consuming, and then you watch this film, and then you come in the class, and you're talking about these films. So cinema sort of becomes eventually has inherently has a pedagogy, which was sort of, I really felt like if my films reaches to the popular culture, which is sort of it is reaching it, then it could be a site of literacy as well. So I really felt that transgression has to happen, and this personal experience has to be really woven into a larger intellectual cultural nuance, and which also comes very personally from this experience of lack and personal experience of exclusion. So it's just then it became about the community instead of just me. So it was like a very micro macro equation in the way I went about the film. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, it's your film really works as a master class for the people to be, that educated about the subject and about the current scenario of the Dalits and the marginalized community. So yeah, I open this discussion for our other two co-hosts as well. So if you have any question, you can just discuss. Yeah, Mrgakshi, yeah.
Yeah, I think in your film, what I realized is that you are continuously navigating your position. Like, you are a filmmaker, we know that for a fact. And but you are also the narrator of the film, and you are also the spectator. So we also get to see a glimpse of your eyes in the beginning of the film. So you are also watching. You are the onlooker of everything that is happening.
Yeah.
And you also talk about Bahujan spectatorship. So can you like for us, can you relate these two things? Like how
Yeah.
have you constructed this concept and yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, like when I watched films and it really started making sense to me when I think in masters and tests I watched this series Ways of Seeing by John Berger, and like it really opened another world. And today I was also reading, which is very interesting, is this that did women have a renaissance? Did women have that during the Renaissance period? Because they were only the subjects of, like, that people imagination, and the imagination was mostly male. It was the man, it was the structure of, like, so the causal agency was always a man. And the moment like woman will come into the picture in the film, it's a spectacle, because you're like a, it's an idle song, or her body is being washed, or it just takes away the whole agency about the character if it is a woman. And it also sort of, like, at the same time establishes or institutionalizes those gender roles, traditional imagination of a certain woman. I don't think so. I am that for myself personally. I really don't feel like I fit into any of those of this binaries per se. And I think nobody really does that also. I mean, we have to, like, very logically think that these are all constructs, and people have created these constructs, and an entire industry has been built on it. Advertising has been built on it. The male gaze, I mean, like what Malvi is talking about, and then, like, what, like, as Bell Hooks talks about, there's this idea of black spectatorship, the idea of looking back. And I just really inherently found that I was always looking back, and it just, like, the theories really empowered me together, so that I felt like, oh yeah, correct. Like, it's not just like Jyoti Nisha is saying this for the first time. People have said this already. There have been thinkers and women who have already done this work. So for me, it was just this that I'm also looking at you. It's not just like you have been looking at, you've just done this, and in 100 years of cinema, you have just showed us victims and stereotypical imagination of a certain person from the margins. I think they did not know that. That's why I theorized Bahujan spectatorship, because I was called on a panel where we were discussing about, caste. We were talking about a film with a filmmaker who had made a film about caste. The entire plot and everything was driven around that entire narrative. Then do you understand it really? Like, my question is that, like, if you really do not understand it, and then you go, and then it's not like even they don't have the money for it. They have enough money. They have, like, money in crores, like it goes in, like, 20, 30, 40, 100 crores sometimes. And then, but you've not just connected these things together. And yeah, and then I think, like, just like, it's just not empowering. It wasn't just this kind of an imagination of a woman is not empowering. I want to see a woman who talks Bangladesh like me, who's engaging with these questions. So this is normalized. So this, my life is easier. Men and the society should be used to women who are talking, who are critical, who are, like, thinking, because we are thinking, we're capable of it. Because the popular imagination, yes, I was fed and I consumed everything that popular imagination, so to say, has created as an imagination of a woman, whether it is, white cinema, or it is like the cinema of India per se. But at the same time, I was also reading Dr. Ambedkar. I'm also reading Periyar. I'm also reading, these phenomena, or I'm also reading Savitribai Phule. I mean, so I felt like this place exists really, and there are so many people people like, there's so many women like me out there who are also struggling with the same things. So the whole idea of making I just wanted to cinematically represent gaze. That's why it was the eyes. Because when I was like really making this film and I was closing my eyes, this is all I was seeing also. So it's not just this, that this film opens up with this. I'm like, the film starts with the question that, the film is not working for me because it was not working for me. Like I said, I did not understand it. So then it became, hence I like now the film that you see now, I have taken the seat and I'm talking about representation. I'm directly asking that question and also informing, trying to educate, trying to sort of make that connection. So I think this criticality is it's a very sacred spot, I think, and it's a very spiritual space from where you can think, you can suspend everything that has been said, and you can still create something, I think, where you are saying something new. It's that capacity sort of, I think, exists for all thinkers and all writers. And this is the way I was just looking. I mean, I was looking back. I'm looking back. The idea is looking back, as a person from the community, and just telling people that, guys, you guys have been like, you've just made such a humongous mistake for such a long time. And then like, it also, obviously also cinema is also an ideological state apparatus. So I understand funding as well. I know like who will fund this kind of a narrative, so that these critical questions that we are having today, honestly, I kid you not, I did not take any public funding. I crowdfunded. I went to institutions, Ambedkarite institutions, and I funded that film, and I spent my own money and, a lot of it, just so that we could have this conversation. Because I understand that funding decides scientific questions. If you've seen any cinema you have seen, the fact that somebody has paid for it, there are patrons for it who are supporting this kind of a narrative. Yes, it is cinema is also business. It's also a business model, but at the same time, it's also a cultural, ideological institution as well. And these institutions are also, obviously, you have to just put all kind of cinema and literature, I think, in context of when it has been produced. So I think, for me, it started with this idea of looking back. And I was also like, guys, I'm also looking back.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And you are in that position of power in the film. You are trying to reclaim your Bahujan identity, so to say. So yeah, completely makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. I mean, thank you, Jyoti, for joining us and letting us show your film. We really appreciate it. I started talking to you about your film at Adi Shakti in December 2022. And, by then it wasn't even finished yet. So since then, I've been really dying to see it. So thank you for letting me see it. And it was really a profound experience. So thank you for sharing that. It's such an honest film, but also a film that is quite vulnerable, isn't it? Where you really kind of, open yourself up to, to all kinds of, introspection, critique, and so on. But also, I'm not sure whether I'll get another opportunity. I just want to say thank you, Neeraj, for doing such a brilliant job organizing this festival. You did this pretty much all by yourself. So thank you very much. You've been doing a stellar job. And thank you, Mrigakshi, also been excellent questions. So my question is one that, basically picks up on the one I asked you at Adi Shakti, because then you were in the midst of editing the film. You were really not happy. I could tell you were really kind of tormented by it just not coming together. And in the conversation that we had during the film, while the film was screening, you said that you edited at least 2 or 3 times quite substantially. Could you tell us a bit more about the process? What specifically did you edit? Why did you change it, and to what effect?
So in the first draft of the film, I think I was not there in the film. Like this, all of it, like where I'm sitting and talking about it, was all through voiceover. But like I showed it to some of my friends, and also the film was even more tighter than what it is right now. So I have edited at least like 30 minutes to just give it like good pacing. And so in the first part, it was very condensed and it was very heavy as well. We were struggling with the breathing space to give it like a good pacing so that it stays with you also. Because there is a lot of information as well in the film. So just, we have to sort of like, so that, so so I showed it to my editor, new editor, and I mean, like, they finished the film and I did everything, like sound design, everything, like for whole post-production I had done, like spent the money, and then also it was not working. Like, I just felt like, oh, it's just not, it's not there yet. I'm like, yeah, it's there, but it's not 100% there yet. So I showed to some other fresh, new people who also kind of engaged with these kind of questions. And they said that, and as I was talking, so like I talk right now, so they were like, why are you not there in the film? You know, like you're such a powerful voice. So my friends only said that you have to be there in the film. And I was kind of like shy, I would say, that to not be in the film. It wasn't that I would not want to, but I was, then for me, like coming in the film became, it was also like I had to be the narrator in the film so that my audience relates with it personally. It's invested. And at the same time, it became very imperative for the film to have me, my presence needs to be there, so that then this argument will just completely make sense. You know, all those theoretical arguments about representation, agency, spectatorship, looking back, all of that will just like hold true. During that, yeah, I mean, where the film starts right now, that the film is not working for me. This is what I was like discussing with my editor, and I was like, dude, it's not working. And it was like, yeah, that's where we'll start the film. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, yeah. And he was like, thankfully, like a very sensitive editor. I mean, he's not an editor, actually, he's a director, but he edited for me. Not entirely, but like he was like, I'll oversee it. So I had a supervising editor who also understood the craft really well, understood the politics, a queer person. So it was very easy to sort of engage with the person as well because they're queer. And then, you know, not like, because I really struggled to find an editor for the film as well. Because you're just not cutting the film together. You're putting it, like you're remaking the film on the table during the edit. And I really think that you cannot really teach your editor about this gaze and everything. It's very inherent. You have it or you don't have it. You can just sharpen it a little bit, maybe. So as a director, it was my job. So with this supervising editor, it just became very easy. And we were talking, and then I made him listen to a lot of podcasts I was invited to. I was like, oh, I talked about this. This is a good podcast. You should listen to this. I said this. And he's like, dude, you need to be there in the film and say all of this. Sit down and just say it. And I was like, okay, sure. So I was shy initially, and then it just, and also I think when I finished the film, just a year before I had theorized Bahujan spectatorship, because I started working on it 2016. So imagine you started making a film on the Bahujan movement, but you do not, your own gaze is popular. Mm-hmm. That's why it really, it became very, like that understanding came to me later on, which you see very clearly in the film, and which I'm also very happy that it took me that time. It's okay, it took me that much amount of time. It was excruciating, honestly, but now it completely like makes sense. So I just, yeah, I think it just, and obviously it was really, I was very nervous to sit down and say a lot of things. So we did a lot of retakes, and it took me like 2 hours to prepare myself mentally to sit down and just say everything that I had to. But yeah, everything that I say is written by me, is whether it's the animation stories or whatever I say in the film as well, like those are theoretical arguments as well. So it was easier, like it was sort of like, I'm talking to, this is how I talk generally. But it had to like sort of fit into the plot of how you go from one A point to B point, and you know, those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, and then like we worked on the music, completely changed the, like just one track apart from one track, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. we totally, like 70% of the music was again redone, composed. And this time I also had much more clarity. So I told my composer what kind of instruments could he use. So he used instruments which had leather. They're made of leather, actually. So very contextualizing also the instruments and the sounds where it comes from, like what you see, what you hear in the film as well. Especially in the animation part, you'll see that more clearly. Otherwise, it's more of it's more like a background score. And my brief was always that to my composer as well. And I really listen to music a lot. And I was like, yeah, basically it's the background score which really takes you there technically. Like if you have like a powerful background score, it really makes the feeling sink. So, and those are all like very craft. These are very craft elements. But I definitely directed my composer that they need to feel the gravity of what I'm saying and watch the film. I would insist them to watch the film. Obviously, I reworked on several drafts and like heard them, and I was like, oh, this is not working. This sound it's too like you have to reduce the sound or balance the sound. So all of those are very intuitive choices, I think. So because we are already sort of, I feel like we're trained into it. Because we are in this world where we are always consuming, and so sort of intuitively you're like very trained into it, but at the same time, a very conscious thought was taken to not make the music sensational, and I told them that I need those pauses and silence. It has to sink in. So those things we worked in the third draft. And like, I'm very satisfied with the film. Like with this, I will not try to change anything. It's perfect.
That's fantastic. But thank you for being so detailed, because I really felt it. I think now that you're explaining it to me, I think I even can rationally understand it better, what I was feeling. But I love the pacing, and I love the pauses where I was allowed to think. And the music, it's very interesting. I need to rewatch it now with that in mind. Thank you.
I think we have 10 more minutes, and since we don't have any question from the audience, and I would like to request audience who, if they have any question, they can just write in the comment section, so we can also discuss it for more than 10 more minutes. So I would ask one more question to take this opportunity. Yeah, actually that Sunil Abhiman Savachar's stunning illustration, like
His hand on it.
Yeah, it's really very stunning, and also that it really enriched the narrative very significantly. So what actually inspired you to make this creative choice of using those illustration to tell the story and not the other way?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to use animation because obviously I wanted to establish the past, like things. I mean, it's not apart from like one film, Jabbar's Patel, this one film on Dr. Ambedkar. There is no other film where you really will see anything about Mahar Satyagraha or Parsi it's in the text, but cinematically you will not see that. And I really wanted to create it. His art is fantastic, I think. And the good thing is about him is that he's also not trained. So he comes from the community, and he has this, it's a gaze, it's that gaze sort of like, the faces and the way he looks at it. And it really made, I don't know, it really had a great impact on me. And I really felt that this should be part of the narrative in the film. It like should be the language of the film in that sense. It was really tough to sort of like be able to work with an artist who's not worked on a film, because you have to storyboard these things, to draw one thing, but to really sort of what you want to say. But I think he has extremely fertile imagination as well. So I will send them, obviously I will send them a script which will have like, this is the audio and this will be this is what we are trying to say. This is what I'll tell him कि wide shot क्या होता है, what, and like what is close up and what is a wide shot. So that I want the character from here, and I want his full face, a close up face. So all of these things are very technical. So we had a lot of revisions, and it took a lot of time. It like close to like more than a year and a half to get these illustrations, and then Also, finding an animator was also becoming very difficult. I wanted very simple. This is 2D animation, so I wanted just this much only. But thankfully, I found this animator who got it what exactly I wanted to say, and he was also very, very patient. And it's also, I think, the his illustrations are something which will not be part of the popular gaze, right? So it also felt very representational in that sense as well. And he also, it was easy in that sense, like as a lived experience, it was kind of easy for me to sort of explain that to him. And he's also an author and a writer, a professor. So, and he engages with anti-caste conversations and philosophy. So that way it was easier. But yeah, of course, there was challenges, but yeah, we did it.
Yeah, actually, we got one question from the audience, and it is from one of the co-organizer, Judith. As he's saying, congratulations. Thank you, Jyoti. Good to reconnect. How is the film's journey to be continued? Can you update us about the venues for the film, its distribution, countries, etc.?
Oh, okay. We're still working on that. I would say that there is another festival it's going to in Kerala in July, which is happening. It's IDSFK. They'll announce soon. So it's going there, and then usually like it's almost like coming towards the end of the travel of the film in terms of usually how much a film travels. Like it takes like 8 months of traveling. But let's see. I don't know. I mean, we're still trying to work out something with an OTT. But those are conversations kind of like begins where after your film has traveled, or sometimes it's towards while you are also like traveling. But we are working on that. Yeah. And I think my film page can kind of update, and as people are constantly like, being invited to sort of like screen films at different universities for sure, which is very, very enriching.
Thank you. If Megaxi and Nicole, if you don't have any question, then we can just maybe.
No, I have a question. But I want to, Megaxi, do you want to go first? Do you have a question?
We have, I think, less than 10 minutes. So yeah.
I think I have a very generic question because you have studied in FTII and then this. So have you had any experience as such as a Bahujan woman that you would like to share?
Experience of what? As in like caste experience?
Yeah.
About your identity.
Of discrimination.
No.
Not at all. But like something like that, I had not, when I was in FTI, I was not exposed to as much as cinema as my classmates were. Because there were only 13 seats, and so like it's a very small batch, and it's like for a year you were together. So they were not like there was only one more woman from a community. But no, like FTI was very cool. I mean, and thankfully TIFF was also very cool. And I think maybe I think just for me, I just felt like that I was not exposed to a lot of cinema as much as my peers or my friends were. Like they had seen The Godfather or the Pulp Fiction, which I had not seen. So a lot of times my professor will really struggle to teach. Let's say talk about like give an example of Godfather, and he's teaching some theory, but he's talking, have you seen a Godfather? So this happens, this is in the film. And I'm like, sir, I have not seen it. So, so that was sometimes like it felt rude a little bit, but there was no per se discrimination per se, but I really felt like it's a structure. I would rather say that I was sort of aware of the structural lagging behind of not having that experience or exposure. But I was very curious. So I obviously stepped out of my screenwriting class and hung out with director students, direction graduates or editors or actors. And they were really helpful. And I think that's sort of like those things happen in Bombay also. Like I think artists are thoda like they're not like so, not all of them are like so twisted, I would say. So that conversation can happen. I really feel that I'm like you could say like I'm a more positive person that way. Um, and no, artists also did not. But I think I realized that, and I really am pretty aware of this also, that people who are engaging with these questions of caste and like you're studying this theory. So practice, unless it is not going to translate in your practice, then it really becomes very, for me, then that becomes very difficult to sort of engage with people. So it really doesn't matter, okay, are you from my community or not? You may be from my community, but you can be as much patriarchal, Brahminical, and a gatekeeper as well, which I don't like at all. Because then I feel like, oh, okay, this is not the person to talk with or engage with, because they have this tendency of gatekeeping. And that's not my job to correct. Like, you could, so that sort of, I think, yeah, and I'm very like driven as a person. So if I want something, I'll get it. I really don't care. Who are you? What gender? What class?
Yeah, exactly. Can I just pick up on that? Because I mean, filmmaking is such a male-dominated, area, like many areas, right? But how did you, what were your experiences being a female filmmaker, a Bahujan female filmmaker? I mean, the film is beautifully intersectional, right, and explains so much. But I mean, what would you say about, do you feel like you're carrying a burden of representation because there are just not a lot of voices out there like yours?
Yeah, I mean, of course, that patriarchy is there in films as well. Like men are there, and they're like holding this mantle of sort of, I don't know, consciously, unconsciously, but it is there, and it was very difficult to work with people also sometimes. Sometimes really people gave me a really hard time as well. But my agenda was to make the film. I really don't care. I mean, I care in the sense like I really think people are replaceable also. That you should like like anybody's replaceable for that matter if you don't have a good work ethic. So it was tough, sure. It was really tough to it was tough, like in the sense I think I met both kinds of people. I met people who always said no to me, and it just amuses me when somebody says no to me because I'm like, okay. It's just it's not my temperament. It's just it's the challenge is like I take it head on. Like I'm not really scared that way. But that patriarchal systems are there. But at the same time, there have been friends, like even in film industry as well. Like especially let's for example, when I was applying to film festivals, I did meet some people and filmmakers who did not know me at all, but they just felt that I was doing some good work, and they themselves came together and it's like, oh, Jyoti, you can do this. This is better, and this is the way you go about it. And I was very happy to have gotten those suggestions as well. So I think you have to sort of like negotiate this space a lot. I think men also eventually get to respect you and learn it if you really know your job and you really know. And surely they make it. I mean, if they're, and that's why I'm saying like the final cut is became much more easier because I think my editor was very supportive. Who's a queer person. So with him, like there was no sexual tension or bullshit or just like, there's no power dynamics per se. We are just trying to make a good film, and that's all that matters towards the end of it. I mean, and some people get it. That's why some people definitely manage to make. I mean, I'm not the first one, right? Like people have managed to make good stuff together, and it's ultimately your crew. I think it's very, very essentially. I have realized that you really need to pick your people very, very responsibly and consciously. And people don't need to make your life hard if you have the same, what do you say, goal sort of to achieve. Sure, and I think as a director, you should also have done the work to sort of direct people because they expect you. Your team expects directions from you. But sure, I mean, yeah, those some people have made it hard for me, and I'm like, yeah, sure, next time we're not going to work together, obviously, or and I will also be here, right? So And I ultimately, and you also like want to work with people who really help you do the job, because that's the ultimate aim of collaborating with anybody. Because I feel like I bring something to table. I expect you also bring something to table, so that I can also learn and do this better. Which is a process, I think, so of anything like filmmaking per se. But it's difficult I think it's difficult for men to take orders from women, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just checking if we have any question from the. No, I think we don't have any question, and we have already passed our time. So I think I just thank you, Jyoti, for taking time from your busy schedule and to be part of this festival. Thank you so much for showing your film and taking participate in this engaging discussion. And and thank you, Dr. Nicole and Mirgakshi, for contributing to this engaging and insightful discussion as well. I would like to also thank our research network, Nottingham Trent University's Post-Colonial and Global Studies Research Group, and Bonington Gallery, Nottingham Trent University, United Kingdom, for their help in organizing this event. And I would also like to our audience, whoever were watching our film and the discussion, and for joining us today. Don't forget to check out the rest of the films, but we don't have our films in the last session, so we just have one session left, and which is also about the that panel discussion of discussing the current status and the current scenario of the Dalit filmmakers and their films, and how what is the future of Dalit themed films and anti-caste themed films, basically. So check out our website, and see you on next Thursday. And thank you all for thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Neeraj. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Nicole. This was like a pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's lovely to meet you all.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you all.